Hello and welcome to The Print. I'm with Audrey Truschke, Mughal historian and assistant professor at Rutgers University in the US. Audrey, welcome to The Print.
Thank you for having me.
Now, my first question to you is about the fact that you're a foreign historian visiting India. You've written 2 books on Mughal history, one of which is on Aurangzeb. And you know that in the heart of Delhi, not so long ago, we had a road named Aurangzeb. The name was removed, and of course in his place we have this much beloved Muslim president called Abdul Kalam. Now, why do you think Aurangzeb's name was removed? Is it that India hates Aurangzeb so much?
It is, I think, that some Indians, not all Indians, hate Aurangzeb. But I think the important point there is that they don't hate Aurangzeb as a 17th century Mughal king. They don't know very much about him as a historical figure. They hate Aurangzeb as a proxy for hating India's current
Who's they?
Muslims. They, I mean, I think, like I said, we're not talking about all Indians. I think we're really talking about sort of Hindu nationalists, Hindutvawadis, right? That's that sort of crowd who are increasingly uncomfortable, it seems, with the place of Indian Muslims in what they want to become the Hindu Rashtra.
So why is Aurangzeb this hate figure? Why do the BJP and the RSS tend to hate Aurangzeb so much that they had to remove his name from, somewhere in the center of Delhi?
Right. As I said, it really is a proxy, and I think to understand why is Aurangzeb this proxy, right? Why not somebody else? You have to go back to the colonial period, right? So many stories in India do seem to go back to the British, for better or for worse, and in this case, really for worse, right? The British held up Aurangzeb as the sort of exemplar, in a negative sense, of Indo-Muslim kings. And they held him up as sort of the worst example of what they saw as a negative, oppressive form of rule. And they didn't see it that way in a vacuum. They didn't see it that way for objective reasons. They saw Indo-Muslim rule in a negative light in order to present colonialism as favorable by comparison, right?
So Aurangzeb wasn't such a bad guy?
I would never put it in those terms. I would say that many of the popularly believed myths about him are just that. They're myths. They're not true. Was he good or bad is not a question that I am interested in asking as a historian, but I am interested in recovering the historical truth to the extent that we can about this complex king, and I am interested in underscoring his complexity.
So what is his complexity?
So he destroyed some Hindu temples, but he protected more of them.
He protected Hindu temples?
Correct, more often than he destroyed them.
So
right?
why are we cherry picking the past today?
Because it serves the interests of the present.
What does that mean?
Well, people have all sorts of interests in the present, but I'm thinking here of political interests, right? My interest in the past is primarily as a historian. I'm curious about the past. I want to know about it. I care about the past and the present, very much so. But at the end of the day, it is the past that matters most to me. That is not true for most people who think about the Mughal past. They are more interested in how the past can serve the interests of the present day.
So you are a foreign historian, Audrey. Why should I listen to you? I'm an Indian. My past is mine. It's not yours. It's not your business. So
Right.
Why is it that I should read your books, however well written they are?
Well, history is not in your blood, it's not in your nationality, and it's not in your skin color, right? You should judge a historian by the strength of her arguments, right? By the validity of her analysis and by how solid or not solid her historical evidence might be.
So let's come back to the present and talk a little bit about, and if you could reconnect for me, the problem that the Hindutvawadis or the Narendra Modi government have with Aurangzeb and why they deemed it necessary to remove him and replace him with someone else.
Right. So, I think part of the issue here, and maybe a piece I haven't brought in yet, is the idea that we should view the past through the lens of injury, right, and somehow correct historical wrongs. I think that many Hindutvawadis feel genuinely injured today by Aurangzeb's very existence and by what they believe he did in the past. And in terms of understanding that feeling and that emotion, it is not all that relevant that Aurangzeb didn't actually do much of what they think he did, right? The feeling is real, nonetheless, even if it is based on a misperception.
So how do we achieve closure over this injury that we feel?
Ultimately, I would argue, I think, that injured feelings over Aurangzeb are misplaced and one should dislocate those, right? Partition is another matter. That is much more recent and a much more real thing. But for Aurangzeb, I don't think people should feel injured about him. I think that they should learn more about him. And I think that in the process of sort of undermining some of what they think they know, they might figure out that he was actually a complicated Mughal king who lived in a very different world than what we live in today, and that there's a lot more to know and think and say about him than whether he lives up to 21st century standards.
Audrey Truschke, thank you so much for talking to The Print.
Thank you, Jyoti.